Alright, it's pretty late, so I'm just going to make this a pretty simple video. Your first day really depends on the size of the company. If it's a bigger company, what bigger companies like to do is they group their hiring days together, so they'll hire developers and salespeople and HR people and other engineers, and you'll all start together on the same day, and then you'll have this large 1-week orientation thing to get to know how the company works and go through all the HR policies and PowerPoints and how to escalate if your coworker's being an asshole to you and like all this silly stuff. But if you're part of a smaller company, they just hire you whenever and you just agree to go to a day and then you just show up, and that's kind of what happened to me. Actually, I've done both. At my mechanical engineering job, we had 2 weeks from 9 to 5. It was me, an engineer, a bunch of other technician people, some training people that were there, some HR people. So it was just like a big classroom of like 30 people with a projector projecting to the screen, and we all just had to sit and watch the processes of what you do. Please don't look at people like that. That is offensive. Make sure to have your name tag at all times. Smaller company orientations, it's just more like you go and meet the team and say hello to everybody. On your first day, they'll also usually give you your equipment. Sometimes they'll give you a stipend and you can go buy what you want. Sometimes they'll just give you a Mac. Sometimes it'll be new. Sometimes it'll be used. Sometimes they'll say, hey, go buy what you want and we'll reimburse you. That kind of sucks because when you just get hired, you have to wait 2 weeks to get your first paycheck anyways. So the whole reimbursement method is like, I don't have any money. I'm just trying to get paid right now. So I don't know what you're going to do with me for like the first week because I don't have any money to go out and spend it to even be reimbursed. On your first day, you'll install your IDEs. They usually don't care what IDE you use. You can use like a fully integrated IDE, like some JetBrains program that costs money, and you can even ask. You'd be like, hey, if I buy JetBrains, can you guys reimburse me every month for this, or can we just get a yearly subscription for the team to use, and here's why. If they don't offer you anything, just ask about it. They probably have some codes on hand that you can get, but you could use Sublime, you could use Visual Studio Code, you could use Atom, whatever it is that you want. Most companies don't actually care what your text editor is. On your first day, you'll be invited to all of the systems. So we'll be invited to all your project management systems, all of the logging in to track your hours systems, all the GitHub setup. There are a lot of companies out there, all of my companies in fact, will make you make a brand new GitHub account so they can invite that GitHub account to the repo, and they don't invite your actual personal GitHub account. So I have like 6 different GitHub accounts that have been invited to private GitHub repos that you'll never get to see. You'll never get to see that code. You'll never get to see those projects. It's all hidden away under professional GitHubs, and after the job, they removed that second GitHub account from all the projects, so you won't see anything that I committed to because those repos that I was a part of are private and for that company, and then they just kicked me out and kicked my permissions off. Not all companies use GitHub. Some people use GitLab, some people use GitKraken, some people use TFS, some people use Mercurial, some people use Subversion. All the jobs I had used GitLab, TFS, and GitHub. You'll also get invited to all of your project management stuff like Trello, Taskworld, Asana, Jira, so on, stuff like that. But don't forget, like half the day is going to be spent filling out a bunch of paperwork for HR. Paperwork that you're going to be doing for your direct deposits if that's what you choose. Otherwise, they give you a check, but I don't think anyone really does that anymore. A lot of people end up going on the first day and HR lady's like, yeah, you're going to need to get a check so that we can write down your writing number, and we're going to need to see that this matches everything that you're giving us. And I'm like, well, I don't have a check. And they're like, well, you're going to have to go on and you go back home and get one. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be right back. And so then there's like an hour right there just spent going to get a blank check and then searching my closet for a blank check. And I don't have any blank checks, so then I have to go to the bank and get a whole... You get what I'm saying? There's a whole bunch of paperwork that you're going to have to fill out, so you better come prepared. A lot of times they kind of tell you ahead of time what you'll need to bring, but sometimes they don't. And they just kind of slap a whole bunch of paperwork down. If you're in the U.S., you'll be required to fill out the little I-9 thing that verifies your eligibility to work. You're going to have to fill out anything that has to do with the company handbook. Usually most companies have some sort of company handbook that's like 1,000,000 pages long, and you just check the box that says that you read it, even if you didn't read it. The company handbook usually talks about their values and a bunch of redundant stuff that doesn't really matter, but that's where they slide in that fine print, is in the company handbook of like, you can't work for any other companies that do this and that, or you can't have a second job. That would be my suggestion, would be to look for the small print that says you can't moonlight. Moonlight means have a second job that you work at night. I'd also be on the lookout for non-disclosure agreements. I wouldn't reject the job based on a non-disclosure agreement, but I would recommend asking them, is there anything I can do with this non-disclosure non-disclosure agreement later because my entire life as a developer is based around having a portfolio. I'm going to need to show something later if this doesn't work out, or if I move on from this position, or you guys get it. I mean, you have to say basically, if I don't work here anymore, I need something to show for it. And that's kind of an awkward conversation to have on your first day, but you have to get that before you get something down in writing like that. I'd also be on the lookout for something like a non-compete clause, which says that you can't do anything code related or anything related to your job. You can have non-competes that are very industry specific. So if you're doing like React and some special stack, that you can't develop software very similar to what you're doing. And the non-compete also better not last after you quit the job. So if you quit the job and you still have a non-compete clause that says you can't code, then you're done, right? You just can't work. There's no other development jobs that you could take. So non-competes that exist while you're at work but expire after you leave work, okay, that makes sense. But I would try to negotiate your way out of a non-compete of saying, yeah, it doesn't matter if I want to code on a side project, I should be able to code on a side project. I think I should have side projects and side hustles and side passions because all of that hard work will come back into this job and you will benefit from it. And that's kind of been my angle for the most part, negotiating side projects and non-competes. On the first day, you're just kind of a ghost. You're just kind of sitting in the corner, setting up your environment, getting passwords for databases, getting passwords to log into your new accounts that track your time to your, and then before you know it, the day is over and it's already 5 o'clock and you feel like you haven't done anything and you're just barely done setting up your computer. And that's pretty much what like the first day is. It's pretty common that you usually go out to lunch with the new guy and you kind of have a get to know me lunch, or with the CTO or whatever. You don't have a whole lot of actual productive work because it takes time to get set up and learn the stack, especially if you're hired on for a stack that you didn't interview with. So if you're coming as a React developer but you're going to do C#, you're going to have to transfer over and start learning C#. The next day will either be, you're ready to get started. The next day will either be, okay, let's do stand-up, and you'll just kind of be included in stand-up and you'll hear what everyone else has done, and then they'll look at you, and then most likely they'll be like, yeah, just pick a ticket, something that you think that you can do, and then you go ahead and you get started on that ticket. One thing I'd like you to keep in mind is the size of the ticket and how fast you get that ticket done sets the precedent for your entire career at that company. So if you take a really difficult ticket and you know it's difficult and you just slam it out and you don't take lunch and you don't take any breaks and you don't look anywhere else except for the IDE for all 8 hours that you're there, they're going to expect that you do that for the rest of your job. That is the time where you set your productivity rate. Again, my recommendation is to not do that because that's what they'll expect from you, whatever you start off with. The same thing goes for your times coming in and out of the job. Be sure to come in at 9 and leave at 5. Do your 8 hours. Don't come in, don't feel like you got to do 13 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours. Come in, do your time, and leave. Yes, I know it's your first week. Yes, I know it's your first day, but set your time just so they know that you respect your time and that you have other things outside of this. I don't care if it's the first week. You shouldn't get penalized just for doing your job. If they want you to do extra training outside of work, that doesn't really make any sense because they hired you on. It's their job to train you if they knew that they hired you on for something that you're not familiar with. If you're a React developer and you got hired on for a C# job, then you should probably be able to train all day because otherwise you're just going to sit there. Sometimes they'll make you shadow someone or pair code with someone just to see how they're doing things, and then sometimes they'll give you a Udemy account or they'll give you a Pluralsight account or Skillshare, and they'll just say, here's something that will get you up to speed. Here's a little basic project that you can do, and then after you get that, we have some display bugs or we have some little simple issues over here that we'd like you to fix, and then just go ahead and take that, and then if you have any issues, just let us know. Usually in the first few weeks, you'll be doing a lot of pair coding. Also, this is when imposter syndrome strikes big time after you get your first task or your second task, or you can't even complete your first task. This is imposter syndrome. You want to take care of this right away. You want to nip this in the bud right away. As soon as you start feeling like you're not qualified and I'm going to get fired and I haven't done anything, there's a couple things here. Don't let yourself get to the point where you are not doing anything and you are afraid to go tell people about it because you don't want to look like you're stupid and they just hired you and you feel like you're going to get fired right away. As soon as you feel like you can't do this after you've given yourself an amount of time to try a task, as soon as you've given yourself that little chance and you're like, I can't do this, go tell somebody. I'm sure they'll be happy to help you. I mean, if they hired you based on that potential, then people get hired on with the expectation of being mentored and having the ability to ask questions. There are a lot of times where you'll just be sitting at work your first few weeks and you'll just be pair coding or just looking at someone else's screen, and then you'll go and you'll try to do some more things yourself. You should realize that the first few days, the first couple months of your job is a probationary period. If the job doesn't say it's a probationary period, that doesn't matter. How you carry yourself the first few weeks, the first few months of your job is going to set the precedent. They're going to give you that opportunity to fail, and you're going to have to take that opportunity and fail. As long as you don't just sit and don't do any work, you have to get up and you have to go ask. You're not going to get fired. They would rather help you learn so that you can solve problems than just have you sit there and try to figure things out. And this is the hardest thing to do, because you think, they're paying me for this, what am I doing? And it's just so difficult to get up and go ask. And whereas it took me about a week to realize, look, I don't have any shame about this. I'm going to be sitting here staring at the computer, like looking at YouTube and Facebook, and if you're not going to help me, this is what I'm going to continue to do, because I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to sit here and play PUBG on my phone. There's no sense in sitting there wasting time just feeling sorry for yourself, feeling afraid, because the more time goes by while you're doing that, and then it's even worse when you go ask for help, because then they're going to ask you, why didn't you ask for help? Another thing about coding at your first job is that there's going to be tons of meetings. You don't actually sit and code for 8 hours a day. Usually at the beginning of the week, people like to get their meetings out of the way. On Sunday night, you'll be thinking about the meeting on Monday morning, and then Monday morning you'll have stand-up, and then you'll have a meeting with sales, and then you'll have a meeting with customer support, and then you'll have a meeting with the company. And a lot of these meetings, you won't even need to be there, but you'll just need to be there in case they have a question for you, or in case they have to ask you, hey, is this feasible? And it might be your job to just be like, yeah, I think we can do that, but otherwise you wouldn't really have to be there. There's just a lot of meetings in the real world, a whole lot of just talking about doing things, and not a lot of time actually doing things. And again, this depends on the company. It's a lot slower. It's a lot more analyzing what we're doing. It's now you have this entire app that's been built by a bunch of people already. You want to make sure this scales. You want to make sure that this is going in the right direction. You want to make sure that the salespeople are selling the whatever it is you're building the correct way. So you have all these meetings of moving parts, whereas when you're alone just learning how to code and building projects with like a couple people, 5 people, if you're at like a boot camp or something, it's a lot different. Now you're working within, like, you're actually making money, and this is how you're making a living now. And so things move at a little bit slower pace, a little bit safer space. And I'd say as a general rule, as companies get bigger, things move a lot slower. Smaller companies tend to move kind of bob and weave a lot faster, tend to react and adapt faster, but if you're at a larger company, just expect to just move a lot slower than you would initially think. When you say, oh, this is broken on my app, when you're developing yourself, you would probably just go fix it. Whereas if you're at a company, oh, this thing is broken, okay, let's have 2 meetings and talk about why it's broken and if we need to implement this, or if this will affect the budget, or if this will affect our sales projections or our quarterly, financial budget. All that kind of stuff. It's a lot different. So don't go in being, you can do a lot of hours there, no problem. It's easy to do a lot of hours, but as I always say, hours don't mean productivity. It'll be kind of up to you to really pull yourself away to get a lot of work done. All right, so that's a little bit about your first couple weeks there. If you've watched my previous videos, it just seems like I hate on corporate all the time. It just seems like I'm anti, of course you're a bad employee. Of course, this is why you couldn't hold down a job. It wasn't never I could hold down a job. It wasn't for my lack of trying. I was the greatest employee. I went in and I did all the things I'm telling you not to do. I did the 13-hour days. I wouldn't ask for help. Came in on Saturdays, came in on Sundays. I worked all the time. I wanted to be the best programmer that I could be, regardless of if I really enjoyed it or not, because I felt like if I was going to be paid to work for these people, I need to do good work. Right now, yeah, of course, I'd be like a horrible employee. I'm not going to do any work for you. I'm going to do like 1 minute of work, and then as soon as you look away, I'm going to alt-tab and do my own thing. But when I was there, it was just like work, work, work. For a lot of people, that will pay off. Unfortunately for me, I just happened to get paired up with companies that really thought of the developers as expendable, and I had a first-class ticket to being expended or spended in every single scenario, pretty much. There are companies out there that don't do what companies did to me, and I think my advice still works. I think it still holds up, even if you're not a web developer. I think this is just some pretty decent, hearty advice. It's not going to be that bad. Yes, you're going to have imposter syndrome. Yes, it's going to be awkward to ask questions, but you're going to go do it anyways. No, you don't have to work 15-hour days. No, you're not coding 8 hours a day. Realize that you are expendable, though. Regardless of what I just said, realize that you are expendable. Always have another job in your back pocket. I know you just got the first job, but you should always be applying to jobs. You don't have to take any offers. You don't have to take any interviews, but you should have them lined up, just because it takes weeks to get them. They're like, oh yes, we would love to interview you for this. You don't have to take the interview. But if they offer it to you and you start to feel a little bit shaky about your current position, you have some leverage there. You're not totally screwed, because if they let you go, now you got to wait those couple weeks that you could have kind of pre-planned for. Keep your skills up to date, keep applying to jobs, always have a side hustle. Don't feel bad about it. One thing that I would say is a company can drop you. They can just drop you. No warning, nothing required. But for you as an employee, you're supposed to give 2 weeks, right? So 2 weeks notice as an honor code. Do them the courtesy to let them know. But just realize that that's not a two-way street. Companies, they don't treat you like that. They'll just drop you without warning because they don't have to. So I wouldn't feel bad about applying to jobs when you have a job. That's it. That's my 2 cents. Hopefully this video was insightful. Hopefully this video was helpful. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow in the live stream. Oh, by the way, I was doing some game dev earlier on twitch.tv/JoshuaFluke. Go check that out. Go follow me. I'll see you guys tomorrow for more game dev. Okay, bye.